All right. Yo, yo, yo. So before we get into any reviews or introductions on anything, we need to address something the culture has been getting wrong for quite some time. It's not everybody. It's just a large majority of the culture. I see a lot of older generation. They kind of tend to get stuck on this one point. Streaming numbers, pure sales, and don't understand like why half the takes you hear on hip hop media are built on a foundation that it doesn't really hold up. So we're gonna do this right from day one. Welcome to the Mar, the music album review. So, all right, real quick, who am I? Why should you care? 28, grew up on just the classics from the older generation like Usher, 50 Cent, Snoop, Alicia Keys, Beyonce, Jay-Z, whatever was on the radio, whatever was popular, whatever my dad had in his CD collection, music's always been around. It's always been around me, always been interested. But if we're being completely honest, I only knew the music from my era. That's just the way things go. Outside of the legends, everybody knows, like, Tupac, Biggie, MJ, Prince, Aretha. There are probably some other random names that, popular artists that I'm forgetting. I couldn't tell you anything about them or the culture or album names or stuff like that. I just knew it was put in front of me. And, that's one of the things right now that I'm trying to go back and fix. Not just for myself, but for the platform. Here's the thing though. While I love hip hop media, I love all the different podcasts and different voices that we have. If you pay attention, if you really pay attention, you'll start to notice something. A lot of these platforms are not built on facts. They're built on vibes, on which team they're on, who they're cool with, who they're aligned, what's going to get the most reaction, what can I say to incite the audience. It's not really factual based most of the time. And I get it. That's how content is made, It's how people get paid. That's what drives the clicks and the streams, but it's not credible. If I can listen to you have one stance and then a year later you have a stance that is completely hypocritical of your former stance, it shows me you're lacking credibility. You're in this for the chase. But there's no real credible one-stop shop platform where, they just review hip-hop for the music that it is strictly. Just the music, no beef angles, no sides or industry politics. Just, is this a good album? What do the numbers say? What's the story behind the album? Do majority of people agree based off of, how it's being listened to? That's the goal. And that's the goal of the MAR, the music album review. That's what we're building here. So, I have a plan for this. Before I start dropping, weekly commentary videos where I review, what's going on this week in the hip hop space, what albums have been released, certain things like that. I plan to go back all the way to 1998 when I was born to cover music from the last 27 years. I plan on calling it something along the lines of 27 years throughout hip hop. It's something that hasn't been done before in terms of I will be reviewing every single hip hop album that has dropped. Not the popular ones, not the ones that I want to listen to, all of them. And I've already started. Be dropping about 3 to 5 hip hop album reviews daily until I get out of 98. This first video is just a little quick introduction and, a little quick backstory and how things are going to work here on the MAR. goal is for this place to become a source that people can check when they want a real take, not a sponsored opinion. I am already 67 albums deep. That's somewhere between 70 to like maybe 110 hours of listening and reviewing content, note taking, rating, things of that nature. By myself, currently, no team, no budget, just straight to the work. And I think that's a good thing, that gives me the fact that I've actually listened to this content, not just my generation, but the past generations. I've listened to almost everything, so I have a solid foundation of, what hip-hop really is, not just speaking on my opinions or anything like that. And I'll give you guys the good albums, the mid albums, the bad albums, but even throughout all of that, I'll try to find the highlight in any album. And I feel like that's a really strong commitment to hip hop, and that's something that is new, no one's ever done, and I'm kind of excited to get it started. All right, well, let's get into something. So, because before we ever review a single album, we have to settle this kind of, I don't even think it's a debate, I don't know what to call it, but it keeps popping up every now and then. It usually pops up when a current rapper is getting compared to, someone that we deem a legend. The saying is, streaming is fake. Back in the day, artists had to sell physical copies. The numbers today don't really count. Brother, let me explain something to y'all. The numbers count. You just don't want to hear that. You're stuck in like a time where you think it's the greater than, like there can be no better, and you see these numbers and they're so large, you're like, oh, how? I don't listen to this new guy, so there's no way that he has more than I guess the term, the one we always pick is Jay-Z. There's no way he has more than Jay-Z. Impossible. I still listen to this first album all the time. Everybody does. No, bro. I'm sad to say it, but it's not how life works. Realistically, the goal is for the past to always have laid a foundation for the new generation to improve on. That's with everything in life. So it only makes sense that the successful artists of the new generation are better than the past. That's the whole point. It's not to discredit the past. It's we took what you gave and we improved on it. Therefore, objectively, it is better. It's not discrediting what you've done because it was important, it was needed. But that's just how life works. So let's kind of get into it. Let's hop off the logical based opinions, and let's jump straight into the facts. So let's define what we're talking about. A pure sale. This phrase always pops up. Pure sale. So what is a pure sale exactly? Well, it is what it sounds like. It is a physical or digital purchase of an album. You buy a CD, you buy a vinyl, you purchase the album off a DSP source like Apple Music or Spotify. You buy a bundle package, which, sometimes you buy a jacket or a hoodie or a shirt or a concert ticket, and the sale comes with a digital or another copy like a vinyl or a CD of the album. So those are pure sales. One transaction, one unit. So I bought this vinyl or I bought this CD or I purchased this digital download. The artist then got one sale for it. It's a pure sale. Now, some quick explanation. Billboard's top album sales chart, which is, literally called Billboard 200, was built entirely on this metric. And the thing is, they didn't change this metric until 2014. So that means anything before 2015, because this officially happened December 2014. So any album that was released before 2015, its charts were counted by pure physical sales. Okay, I'm gonna come back to that. That was the only thing being counted, by the way. But the market changed after, and it changed fast. According to Billboard and NPR, by the end of 2014, album sales had already dropped roughly about 13% in a single year, and streaming was starting to explode. The industry now had to figure out a way to catch up. So pure sales started to fall for all artists in 2014. So let's pause. Let's ask ourselves a question. If the industry recognized that pure sales no longer told the full story, why are fans still using pure sales as a primary argument in big 2026? That doesn't make sense. Okay, let's pivot. We'll answer that question later, but let's pivot. Here's what I need you to actually pay attention to, because this part really matters. In December 2014, Billboard overhauled the Billboard 200 for the first time in 22 years. According to Billboard and confirmed by NPR, they introduced what is called the album equivalent unit, a formula that counts streaming activity alongside traditional sales. The original ratio was 1,500, that's 1,500 on-demand streams from an album track equals to one album sale equivalent. The RIAA adopted the same standard February 2016. So what does that say? That means that when we look up to see if an album is diamond or platinum, they were counting pure sales for every album. They were only counting pure sales up to 2016 in February. So that means when you look up first week sales for any album before February 2016, and we're looking at like a Billboard or RIAA, they're only talking about pure sales. Okay. Let that sink in. 1,500 streams, not 10, not 100, not 1,000. 1,500 streams equals one album sale. I buy one album, the artist has an album sale. I listen to the same song 1,500 times, the artist has an album sale. I haven't listened to my favorite song 1,500 times in 3 years. I probably have contributed more to an artist's album sales by using pure sales in the last 5 years than I have by using streaming sales. Let's just think about that. So, I have to stream an album's worth of tracks 1,500 times combined before that counts as one unit towards the artist's chart position. Meanwhile, somebody walking into Target in 2003 could pick up an album off the shelf, buy it, and that counts as one unit right there instantly. So now, tell me, which one is actually harder to earn? Buying an album one time and the unit counting, or having to have the song streamed 1,500 times before it counts? Sounds like a very tricky game. But it sounds like the artists that were pure sales were making more of a profit and had an easier time. So people have this completely backwards. Streaming equivalents are objectively more difficult to accumulate than traditional peer sales. If anything, streaming undercounts an artist's real reach, not the other way around. It doesn't help. It's easier for the consumer, but it's not easier for the artist. And Billboard has updated the formula several times since then because they know that they were making life harder for the artists. They know that streaming is harder, so they had to try to figure out ways to accommodate while still remaining to have a grip on the artist. So according to Stereogum, the ratio shifted to 3,750 ad-supported streams or 1,250 paid streams per unit, and they've continued adjusting it based on consumption patterns. The methodology has only gotten more rigorous, not less. I think currently, right now, it's something like maybe 1,000 streams equals 1 unit album sale. So they tweak it. It goes up, it goes down. But they mess with the numbers based on what they want to do, which objectively makes it harder because you don't have anything set in stone. It's whatever they want to do, whatever the music labels and corporations want to do with the streams. It's controlled in a way. Well, the artist's earning and status is controlled. Now, here comes the issue with the argument of people that say streams don't count. Because one, we've already proved that it's objectively harder to gain album sales based off of streams than it is to gain album sales based off of pure sales. It's not even really an argument now. It's sort of just a fact. The problem is now you run into people like Michael Jackson or Lauryn Hill or Prince, artists from the older generation of hip-hop artists, R&B artists, that are still currently charting due to streams. You run into an issue. I like to call it the Lauryn Hill problem. Shout out Lauryn Hill. It's not, she's not a problem. And this is where that whole streams don't count argument kind of dies. Now, here's what I need you to hold on to. Just hold on to this thought, because this is a part that exposes this whole argument. People say streaming is inflated, and streaming numbers can't be trusted. Current artists are benefiting from a system that doesn't reflect real demand. Okay, let's say that's true. All right, let's play devil's advocate. Why is Lauryn Hill on Billboard 200 right now then? Streaming's fake. Lauryn Hill's a great artist, right? Why is she on Billboard 200? Why is Prince still charting? Why is MJ still charting? Why are artists from before the streaming era still charting if streaming is fake? Artists we already knew were great because of their pure sales numbers and their influence of the culture. They're still moving units based on streaming charts. So artists that we are established as great artists, that were being great numbers wise since before streaming era, when it was just pure sales, are still doing great based off of their stature right now in the streaming world. If the system is broken for new artists like Kendrick or Cole or 21 or Drake or Travis Scott or Lil Uzi, if the numbers are broken for them, then it should be broken for everyone. You can't say that streaming is fake for Kendrick and then turn around and use streaming data to prove Lauryn Hill's legacy. The chart either works or it doesn't. And what does it actually tell us when streaming confirms what we already knew from the pure sales era? It tells us the system is working exactly as it was intended to work. Now, since we brought up some of those new artists, um, I'll give you an example. This is probably the easiest one to choose, just because they were the biggest of the time, which is one of them. We'll have conversation about but another day. But let's go ahead and bring Drake up, right? So, all right, I was watching this podcast recently, Joe Budden podcast. Shout out them. You know, uh, they were sort of the first to mainstream it outside of like talk show people. Like obviously, you had your Ricky Smileys back in the day, and your Breakfast Club and Yandy and all types of different stuff. But they were the ones to streamline it in today's era. So I was listening, and I've seen this take everywhere in hip hop media, but specifically, I've never seen it from a credible source like the JBP. One of the members, Ish, said Drake can't move product. I was kind of like, what? What does that mean? At first, I was like, he has to be talking about like clothes or like, like merchandise or something. Can't be talking about music. But then I thought he does move clothes and merchandise as well. But then he doubled down and he was talking about music. He was talking about clothes. He's talking about everything. So it really now became confusing because, again, this I don't even know what to call it. I was about to call it a podcast. It's really a show. It's just, a talk space about music. Whatever this is, Lamar, it's based on facts. It's not based on my personal opinion. It's based on, part of it, yes, is based on my opinion. How did I feel about the music? But then the next part is, is really my opinion based on, like, sources and credibility. So for example, when we're talking about things like this, it's not really opinion based. It's something that you can go check. I don't understand how a platform like the JBP lets Ish get that off. OVO has sold more merchandise than Jay-Z has. You can look it up. That's fact based. Music wise, just music, Drake has outsold Jay-Z musically. It's just a fact. You can look it up. And so, I get it. I understand, what happened in 2024. When someone is at the top for a long time, people are waiting for that moment. It's the same reason why people hated Jordan or Kobe. Same reason why they hate LeBron today. No matter what he does. When you're the standard, you become a target. And, that's just the sport of the game. But let's not let emotion become the basis of a factual, argument. Here's what the RIAA actually says. Drake has surpassed 329 million total certified units in the United States. According to the Grape Juice and RIAA data, he is the first artist in American music history to cross 300 million certified records. He holds 10 diamond certifications, more than any other artist ever in any genre. He's moving product-ish. It's not a debate. It's actually happening. Now, with Jay-Z, I want to be real clear. I have nothing but respect for Jay-Z's catalog and for his ability to, his lyrical ability, his music making ability, his business choices. He has approximately 275 million certified U.S. album sales, according to RIAA. Drake sits at 25.5 million in pure album sales alone before you even factor in his streaming dominance. And Billboard's own data shows that Drake owns 3 of the top 10 biggest streaming weeks for any album in history. So when someone says Drake can't move product, what product are we talking about? Are we talking about the Coke that, he was selling before he became famous? Mr. J? Like, what product are we referring to Ish? Because every metric that exists makes that statement fall apart. Now, is Drake the greatest rapper of all time? It's a different conversation. And honestly, that's a conversation that this platform will get into properly, with research, with data, with receipts. But can't move product? No, the numbers don't support that. That is a take that comes from someone that is stuck in the past. I know it's hard to believe that someone you deemed the greatest of all time, someone that had the highest of heights, someone that had the biggest numbers, could be overshadowed by someone that you probably don't listen to on your day-to-day because it's just not your style. It's not your vibe. You don't gravitate to it. You weren't supposed to gravitate to it. Most of it. It wasn't for you. It's not your generation. That's just how it is. So, since we brought up Jay-Z, I might say something that really ruffles the feathers, but let's just say it. I've never personally thought that Jay-Z was the greatest rapper. It never made sense. I've always thought that he was the greatest businessman in hip-hop history, and I don't think that's a small statement. How do you go from the streets of Marcy to being a billionaire? Married to Beyonce, ownership stake in a million companies, co-founded Tidal, equity in Armand, the champagne brand, part ownership of the Chiefs. That's extraordinary stuff that someone no one has done. If anyone questions Jay-Z's business, they're not a smart person. Business-wise, he's the greatest business businessman that we've ever seen of one of our people. Yes, I agree with that. But as a rapper, I want to go back and look year by year when Jay-Z was definitively the best game one day. I will have a segment or another show where we actually do that. Because, in 2001, the year that, most people point to as Jay-Z's best year, where, the Blueprint dropped, Nas released Stillmatic in the same window. And, by most critical and cultural consensus, Nas was the victor that year, Ether. So Jay-Z didn't even have his best year. He wasn't even the owner of his best year. Jay-Z's best year, he wasn't the top dog. It's not an opinion. Or, technically it is an opinion, but it's, it's majority of the culture's opinion will say that Nas had that year. So, if that's Jay-Z's best year, when was Jay the undisputed best? I genuinely don't know. Trust me, there'll be a segment where we do the research. I've already gone through the years and we've seen it, and but as of now, I've never had that opinion. It's just me. And I guess I don't know yet. We'll find out, just to be fact-based. And I'd rather say that than, make a claim that I can't necessarily back up. But that's just my opinion right there. That's an episode for another day. Trust, we'll get to it. However, that was a lot for episode 1. Parts of it was a little scattered, but it is necessary. It is necessary to establish that something like numbers means a lot. Because if you are taking away the credibility of numbers of this current generation, then that means the artists of the past that are charting high currently right now, then that means their numbers are fake as well. And so then that leads to another question, since we did bring up Jay-Z. If Jay-Z was the greatest rapper of all time, why does he currently not have any albums on top 200 chart, but someone like Lauryn Hill and Prince or Michael, why do they? Why does Lauryn Hill have an album in the top 200 charts, but the greatest of all time, Jay-Z, doesn't? So Lauryn Hill's numbers are real and Jay-Z's numbers lie about him? That doesn't make sense. So you need to know how this platform thinks before we start dropping takes, because takes without context are just noise. And the internet already has enough noise. So that's something that we won't be doing here. The takes will be fact-based. Here's what you can expect from the Mar going forward. Facts first, always sourced. An honest rating, even if it's uncomfortable. A highlight from every album, even the ones that I can't stand, because, honestly, music is objective, and so there will be albums that I don't like, but I'll always try to find the best in the album. And a commitment to doing the work that most platforms skip. Because, as you know, there's millions of hip-hop media platforms, there's millions of platforms that have already done reviews, but no platform has ever done a review of every single hip-hop album released in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, let alone 27 years. Currently we're 67 albums down, hundreds, thousands more to go. And when we get to present day, this is when we'll turn into a live, weekly, real-time source for what's happening in hip-hop music currently. But I want to get everything established first, almost have an archive of music content and reviews. And again, nobody's done this before. Reviewed every single hip-hop album. It's not done consistently and credibly, hasn't been done. And so we're going to do it. With that being said, I'm excited again to, get the ball rolling on this. I thought it was very important to, just give a little brief introduction of myself, as well as, highlight that, numbers in music do matter. Numbers do paint a story. And that if we're being honest with each other, and if we got information from fact-based sources and then made opinions, saying something like the streaming numbers today are fake, that's not really something that is an intelligent statement, or something that anyone with a little background in this music landscape would say. The numbers are definitely real. That's episode 1 of the music album review, The Mar. If you rocked with us, you liked it, like, follow, share, tell somebody. We're on Instagram, TikTok, X, Threads, Facebook, and we'll be on YouTube soon. All at The Music Album Review. TheMusicAlbumReview. The Music Album Review. Website is on the way. If you disagree with anything I say, please feel free. Drop it in the comments. I'm not scared to debate. I just come with receipts, not opinions. So if you do want to debate about something, make sure it's fact-based. But I'll see you next time. The Mar.